Welcome to It Takes Two.
I'm Clarissa, the couples therapist.
And I'm Charles, the marketing professor, talking shop on relationships, mental health, and
how couples navigate career growth in dual income households.
We'll cover the question, whose career should be prioritized when both partners work, whose responsibility is childcare, and much more.
We will also share a fun date idea and connection question to take your relationship to the next level, so make sure you stay tuned till the end.
All right, well, if you've been living under a rock, the most recognized woman in the world is dating a football player from the Super Bowl championship team. I'm, of course, speaking of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Well, Travis played in the biggest playoff game of the year on Sunday against their biggest rivals, the Buffalo Bills. Taylor, of course, was in attendance, but she was definitely not the star of the show. Quick side note on this, since Taylor and Travis started dating, she's been to a lot of games. And so when the Chiefs win or do a big play, they'll show her celebrating in the stands. I think it's super cute personally. It's fun to see T Swift as a casual fan, but there are a lot of groaners out there complaining about how she becomes the star of the game despite not being a player or something. Anyway, this is why this story about this celebrity couple powerhouse is so funny. Jason Kelce is Travis Kelce's brother. He also plays in the NFL for the Eagles. Jason and Travis, fun fact, actually played against each other in the Super Bowl last year.
That's right.
But last week, the Eagles lost, and Jason retired afterwards. So he showed up to the Chiefs game this week to support his brother Travis. Halfway through the game, Travis Kelce scores a touchdown to put the Chiefs up by 3 points. But instead of showing Taylor celebrating, there's a shirtless, 350-pound Viking of a man, arms out wide, holding a beer, shouting at the top of his lungs. Travis's older brother, Jason, stole the spotlight, and it continued throughout the night with beer-drinking shenanigans and celebratory dances from the massive Hall of Fame player. One of my favorite aspects of the story is the idea that this could have been the first time that Jason met Taylor Swift. Imagine being Taylor and you're meeting your potentially soon-to-be brother-in-law for the first time, and he's out there, tits out, beer in hand, getting crazy. I just love it.
Sorry, you totally stunned me with that.
No, but that's how, go look it up. It's incredible.
No, I love it. I saw it. The internet went wild for him.
Yeah, and to that point, there were a lot of hilarious memes and tweets on X saying things like, my wife saw this last night and said, I love Jason Kelce. He is awesome. But when I did this at Tommy and Cindy's wedding, I was an asshole with a drinking problem. Double standards. Also, apparently Jason's daughter saw him and said to his wife, Dad's boobs are showing. Freaking hilarious and amazing.
His daughter or son?
Daughter.
Daughter, okay.
He also did the cutest thing in the world. He jumped out of the suite into the stands, picked up a little girl who was holding a Taylor Swift poster, lifted her up to the suite window, and the girl got to wave and say hi to Taylor.
Oh, that's actually cute.
It was so cute. He then set her down and started broing it up with the Bills fans, despite the Bills having lost the game. What a moment. I love seeing celebrities and family dynamics played out in that way. It just seems so authentic and real. I love seeing it. So the question I have for you, Clarissa, is do you think Travis and Taylor are going to get married?
Ooh, I'm not a Swiftie, not because I don't respect and appreciate Taylor Swift music. I just haven't ever, I feel like I can't call myself that because I'm a casual,
Yeah. It's not that you don't appreciate
it. That's a term of respect for people who have earned that,
Yeah, you don't throw around that term lightly.
Yes. So I honestly don't know enough about what's going on, but it does seem like this relationship is the most authentic or herself that she's been. So from what you can tell, it has all the makings to be a really good relationship with a great foundation that could be long lasting. But then you also don't even know, what do Travis and Taylor even think about marriage? Like, do they even believe in marriage? Some people don't want to be married. You know what I mean?
That's a great point.
And also, what would change if they got married? Because they're probably not going to join their finances. There's going to be like some prenup or like thing with financials, because
and Taylor ain't changing her name.
No, Taylor's not
no
changing
way.
her name. Taylor Kelce, no freaking way. She's going to stay Taylor Swift. And they're like, they could move in together, but then you don't have to be married for that. So if they do get married, I bet that it will be after a while. That's my prediction.
Like years,
because there are just so many unique dynamics. And then also I feel like it's like higher stakes because of the level of celebrity that she is.
Yeah, no, I like that comment. And I think it's a win-win for us, whether they work out or not, because if they work out, classic love story, we all love it. They're both two very lovable characters and celebrities. But if they don't work out, we're going to get a fire album afterwards.
Fair. Yep. Win-win.
Yeah, win. Speaking of fire album, let's listen to our disclaimer.
This podcast only provides information. It's not a viable replacement for a therapy session. If you need help or have an emergency, contact your local mental health authority. Our hosts are experts on mental health. Many of our guests are too. This podcast does not provide expert advice. It's just entertainment, baby. Dates and places have changed. This podcast should never replace real therapy.
According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 2017, up to 58% of married couples were dual income households. I can only imagine that number is significantly higher now. A smaller study more recently suggested up to 66% of households are dual income. Clarissa, licensed marriage and family therapist and clinical director of Utah Marriage and Family Therapy Clinic, what's your experience with couples? Are there more traditional marital roles with a single provider, or are most couples both providing in a household?
Really quick, with that stat, was it 2018 there?
2017.
2017, it was 50%.
It was 58%, yeah.
Do you know like the sample size?
Massive. It was the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Oh,
so this was
fair.
all of
Yeah.
America, roughly.
So like 2017, 58%.
Correct.
Then it went up to what?
So a smaller survey recently done when 2022 said 66%.
Okay.
I don't know why. I just feel like that's still low, but I think I have a bias because older married couples are probably not in that situation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But
like,
I'll repeat that question to you. In your experience with couples, are there more traditional marital roles, or are most couples both providing in a household?
this is really tricky. I would say there are more people who are dual income, dual providing. I'm just thinking of like all my clinical sample size. I still think though that it didn't come from a strategic standpoint of like, or even like a purpose or value driven standpoint that people wanted to be like that. But you have to keep in mind, like we live in Utah. So most couples report like wanting to be like the stay-at-home mom, and then the dad works a 9 to 5, and like that's what they want.
Are you still even seeing that in the younger generation, like Gen Z?
I mean, the younger generation, I would say, has been more dual income by choice, right? Like, so I'm kind of proposing that I do see more people who are dual providing, but I don't necessarily think that it's gone well because it wasn't because that's what they chose from the gate. Like
interesting.
They ended up in that because of like necessity. But I do see more people who both work than I do who don't. If I had to put a number to it, I'd say maybe it's still not like super high. I would say maybe it's like 60 to 70% dual income.
Okay. And you're saying that of that 60 to 70%, a lot of those couples are dual income by necessity, not by choice.
Yeah.
That if they could have it their way, they would be a traditional single provider household, but they just can't afford to do that.
Yes. And I would say that maybe they originally chose to do like traditional household with the woman staying home, but then like mental health or sanity or like faith transition or things like that, those types of necessities rising out, not just like economical necessities. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like realizing that their needs have shifted. So it wasn't like a strategic choice from the very beginning of their relationship. I actually think that that's a pretty small percentage of people.
Okay.
Like maybe 20%.
Okay, so
that I've seen.
Over time, they've been married 4, 5, 6 years. Maybe there's something they are unsatisfied with, whether individually or as a couple or just circumstantially values. And so it changes. And now they want to start a career.
Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine that being so tricky because, you know, when you get married, hopefully, ideally, you are having all of these values-driven conversations. How many kids do you want? What kind of career path are you on? Those types of things. And so if that number drops from like 8 kids to 2, or if you're out there wanting 8 kids, all right, you probably do need a therapist. No, I'm joking. Sorry.
No, but it often drops from like 4 to 6 to like 2.
To like 1 or 2, like that's a big values change, or maybe to 0. I've heard, we know of people who have wanted kids and then have decided not to. So then same thing with careers. If one person has been in the relationship for a long time and is on a career trajectory and needs the support of a spouse, but now that spouse wants to start their own career, I can imagine that creates a lot of friction.
It does. Yeah, because like, I mean, there's just a lot that goes into that, especially if they do have kids. How do you strategize all that? That's a lot to take on. Circling back to something you said, you also had mentioned that like your example used 4 to 6 years of marriage. And I would actually say the biggest sample size within a clinical lens, like, so my clinical sample size of my current caseload would be that most couples right now who are coming to therapy have been married for 12 to 15 years. Like that's like the, would it be the mean or the?
Yeah. Most.
The most.
Most, mean. Either or. Yeah.
So that's like the most of my couples right now. So within, that was just something you mentioned.
Okay. So I could imagine after being in a relationship for 12 to 15 years, and the values evolve, and a couple or one of the partners who's been in traditional single provider income household wants to then start their career or restart their career, that can cause a lot of friction.
Definitely. And they are usually a few kids in, 3 to 4 probably.
So if they've been 12 to 15 years, I'm assuming those children are either teenagers or like in school where the other parent could go out and start a career again without childcare demands, because I can imagine that's a big issue for people with younger kids.
Yeah, usually they're school age, but also like that I still see people with like 3-4-year-olds where they're not quite in school yet, and like they are, I see all years of marriage, all age groups of like their kids are all age groups, but you're right. Like their kids are probably more like 9 or 10 is like usually their oldest if they've been married 12 to 15 years, or like maybe 11. But anyway, their kids are in a place where it's sometimes more of an opportunity to do that, even if they've been sitting there thinking about it for several years.
So what do you tell a couple who has some conflict with this, and what guidance do you give to the individual or to the couple when they do want to start their own career? They do want to become a dual income household, but more so for that individual career, whether they have children or not.
There's so many angles that you could come at it, right? Because if there's a desire, but they don't know what to do, like what they want to do, and usually it's a woman. So like if a woman's been a mom and she's trying to figure out what she wants to do, then that's like its own conversation. Like sometimes we'll be talking about like what maybe she's interested in, or like what the parameters need to be, like kind of the lifestyle management in the sense of like, if you want to work, what are some of the criteria that need to happen, like work from home or not, go to school, not, stuff like that. So that could be a huge part of the conversation. I do think like childcare and parenting and then like home responsibilities becomes a huge part of the conversation.
Oh, I'm sure, because that other partner who maybe hasn't done as much housework or childcare, or minimal to even say, in a very traditional household, that becomes an added level of work and effort and burden and responsibilities that they're quite comfortable not having done for a decade.
On the note of childcare, something that can be really challenging about that conversation is a lot of women end up getting stuck in their options of like what they can do, because can they even do something that can afford daycare? Like the amount that daycare costs sometimes doesn't even end up making it worth it for people to end up going to work, because then financially they'd be like in a more stuck place. So sometimes in that sense, we end up talking about, okay, what are some things that you could do that don't require daycare that could still get you the opportunity to start working at some point, maybe when things are in a better place or something, you know?
Yeah. That's gotta be so hard, because I'm, as a marketing professor, I actually teach a lot of college career success courses in consulting men and women how to get careers and how to get promotions and negotiate their salary and all those different things. And women are already at such a disadvantage in so many different ways. And the idea of a woman trying to build a career while working part-time, because they have to do part-time because of the childcare situation, the odds are just so stacked against them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's actually really frustrating, because why is a woman, like, why is she stuck with the role to like find the childcare, pay for the childcare? Like, those are your kids too, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's
what's really hard sometimes, like being a woman therapist and meeting with couples, and usually like 98% of the time, the woman is the one whose career has been taken like the sacrifice of all these things. Then it's like kind of frustrating to sit and watch it all play out, because she gets stuck with like paying for the childcare, or can her wages even make up for the childcare? She gets stuck with finding the childcare instead of it being like a mutual decision or a mutual researching of like, where do we want to put our kids in childcare? You know, all of those things, getting the kids to school, getting them home from school. And yeah, I actually think that one, like a lot of dads have taken on that role too, of like getting them to school and getting them home. But in general, it's frustrating to sit and watch not only like the burden end up all on her, but then it's like she's also not even in a place where, with career wise, where she even has the headspace to like figure that stuff out. Whereas if you are in a more secure place with your career, maybe you have the ability to think through some of those things.
Yeah. And like you said too, if you aren't sure what you want to do, I could see the role as husband is like, well, you don't even know what you want to do, so I'm not going to make sacrifices if you don't even know.
That has been a conversation. Yeah.
Which is just really minimizing a value of your partner.
Yeah.
And there's this entitlement that I think a lot of men and husbands have of that traditional provider role. Like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. I've put all this time and energy and effort into it, which is valid. Like, a lot of men do spend a ton of time and energy and effort building a career. But remember that as humans, we aren't building careers, we're building lives.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to also build the life of your spouse and partner who wants to experience their own career journey. And then the same thing with your children, like providing them opportunities to do the same.
Yeah. Oof. I think this is where my like feminism creeps out, where maybe it's hard for people who don't necessarily agree with feminism, or don't necessarily agree with like what I'm saying, which I don't know how you don't agree with it, like literal data.
A penis does not make you better in the year 2024 at any job.
No.
I mean, I say any job. That's an absolute, I think. But you get the point. Like,
I could think of a few jobs.
But no, like it's just an antiquated, outdated philosophy that because of your genitalia, you are somehow entitled and more privileged to have a career and to be more successful at that career and all of those things. Now, again, we don't live in a world of idealism. Like the truth is that oftentimes men are given more money, more opportunities, all those different things. And so it's such a balance to strategically decide what's best for your family, especially when finances are tight, versus empowering the individual to start a career that would become fulfilling and satisfying. It might even help the relationship as that woman or the other partner flourishes in this new individuation.
Yeah. I think another group of clients that come in that maybe my stance on this can be near biased. I say near biased because like at the end of the day, when my client is in the room, I show up unbiased. That doesn't mean that I don't challenge them on their narrative and their perspectives, but I help them get to where they want to go no matter what. But there's this other group of couples that are maybe coming in where they haven't quite had kids, or they're pregnant, or like they are premarital and they have this philosophy of traditional home of man works, woman stays at home. And I'm not going to lie, like I have to either bite my tongue and not say anything, or slightly like emphasize like some type of career prep or growth before they have kids or in the premarital stages, so that they don't end up in a situation where 10 years in, 12 years in, they're like, oh, I really should have done this, and now I'm stuck.
Yeah.
And it's hard because it's like that could come across really biased on my part, but it's also like it's not like a better path or a worse path. It's just different problems, right? Like putting off having kids might not be a problem that people want to have, but also maybe they also don't want to get stuck. I don't know. It's just different.
Well,
and
let me just defend what you're calling bias. I would call it pragmatism. Over 50% of marriages end in divorce. Mm-hmm. That's a coin flip. And that's your entire future.
Yeah.
And so as a man or a woman, get the education, get the career started, and be independent people together as a couple, because if things go south, you have to be able to take care of yourself.
Yeah. And with that, I genuinely don't think that people should be taking such long breaks, because women end up taking 5 to 10 years outside of their career interests, not engaging in anything like volunteer or projects or schooling or anything. And then it's so hard to get back into the field. Yeah. And so even if you're like, I want to be a stay-at-home mom, I still end up being like, okay, if that's the case, then you should be engaging in your career interests throughout that time, even if it's not in a paid position. You should be networking. You should be like making content about it. You should be researching content. Like you should be doing something to like continue to build like a CV almost, even if you're not in a paid working job.
Clarissa, 100,000 million trillion gajillion %. Like I have 450 students each semester.
So much.
And I see a lot of, and over 50% of UVU students are non-traditional, meaning they aren't going to college straight out of high school. And I have a lot of adult learners who are either 15, 20 years into their career, or they're empty nesters coming back to college to start their careers. And you see it over and over again in my career classes where they don't feel confident in their resume. They don't feel confident in the skills that they developed in college 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago.
Totally.
And I even tell my freshman students, hey guys, if you did something today, like if you learned coding today, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, when you graduate, it's probably going to be outdated. And so you need to be constantly building your skills and strengths and be able to see how those skills transfer. So you said continue building, even like commodifying or monetizing your hobbies is a great strength and skill to develop because it teaches you marketing. It teaches you finances and accounting. It teaches you supply chain. It teaches you a lot of different aspects of business that you can more easily reintegrate into the career field when you're ready as an empty nester or as a dual income household with children at home. It is possible to do both. And it does take both partners, though, I believe.
Yeah. To be on board?
Yeah, because it is so unfair. I'm going to get on my Barbie rant right now. It is so
such
unfair.
a Barbie rant.
It is so unfair for women to be expected to be perfect mothers, perfect wives, perfect housekeepers. And if they want a career, they have to maintain doing all of those things and then be perfect in their career. It is so unrealistic and it's so unfair, especially because men get the convenience and leisure a lot of the times of just being the guy who goes to work and then comes home with the bacon and the bread and the bag.
Yeah. And there are, like, this makes me sound like a man hater, but there are men who just revel in that. Like they truly,
of course, it's easy. It's
let
convenient.
their brain just not think of all the other things. And so there's this massive issue of women carrying the emotional labor is what they call it, where even if theoretically you both clean the house, the woman's the one sitting there thinking and shaming herself if the house is messy, whereas the man's able to check out and not think about it and compartmentalize and stuff.
Right. And we're not man haters. We are close-minded haters.
That's such a good way to put it. I love men.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad because it all it does is require just some reflection and self-awareness. And so here's a good question husbands can ask themselves to say like, oh, where am I at on this? And again, no shame or judgment, because a lot of men have been raised and conditioned to think this way.
Yes.
They are a product of their society, culture, and upbringing. And so it's to no fault of their own, but it is their fault if they continue to keep their eyes shut. And so this is a question you can ask yourself to really help as a litmus test. When friends or family members are coming over, do you think immediately the house is messy, I need to clean it before they get here? If you don't, that is probably what a woman experiences in your household.
Oh yeah, especially if you are in our population of Utah.
Yeah. Who's going to watch the kids while the friends and family are over?
Yep. When a girl wants to have a girls' night, a mom, she has to find childcare. When a man wants to have a guys' night, she has to find childcare.
Yeah.
If he like decides to like find, Anyway, if like they both have something going on and there was something scheduled and he ends up scheduling last, she still ends up having to find childcare.
Yeah.
Not him.
And again, listen, if you're feeling a little defensive as a man or a husband at what we're saying right now, let me just pull out the most classic value and virtue that I believe that you hold on to and apply it to the situation. The golden rule. Do unto others as you want done unto you. Equitability, equality, fairness. What is fair? If you strip away traditional roles and you just look at you and your partner as two human beings who both have needs, wants, and desires and ambitions, and you have a bowl of responsibilities that you have to divvy out equally, just reset and view your life and circumstances in that way. And I think you'll quickly see, oh yeah, you know what? I have been kind of benefiting from the societal norm and role that my wife has taken on, and she's awesome and I love and appreciate her for it, but I want to do more, or I want to empower her more.
Right.
So Clarissa, I'm on my soapbox. Again, I'm just thinking about like my students and how I think again about those non-traditional students who are coming back to get education, to start their careers so late in life. And I've heard from them how there's this weird cognitive dissonance where they feel like they're obviously grateful they had kids. Like they love their children. They'll say that till their throats or whatever cliche. They'll say that over and over and over again to reiterate it. But then there'll also be this, you know, pain in their eyes, so to speak, of like, man, I wish I would have prioritized me a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think you're touching on something that, like, there's a thread within all of this that really just grinds my gears for using the terminology. But there's this thread of binaries. Like, when a woman is like, I love my kids so much. Like, I really love being a mom. I love my kids. And then they like get all frazzled. And I want a job. Like, I want to work, you know? And it's like, why can't it be both? Just because you want to work does not mean that you don't love your kids.
Yeah.
And then the other thought process is with what we were saying, like, if men, while listening this, are feeling defensive, we are really just trying to encourage not binary thinking. Like, traditional household is one way of doing it. And if that's what you all have agreed to, awesome. You should still talk about what those roles and responsibilities are when it comes to kids and the household, and like when you're not in your 9 to 5. Like, that is something you all should like identify and structure. Though, what about when you like remove the binary? It's just so much more helpful because it's not putting you in a place to get stuck or have to like be inflexible. And like removing all that, being open-minded and flexible, you can shift as like the needs arise or whatnot. And so not getting stuck in, I don't clean the house because I'm a dude, or I don't work because I'm a woman, but being open to seasons of life where each is appropriate as it needs to be. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it lends back to what you said earlier in the pod, where you said that couples a lot of the times are dual income out of necessity, not out of desire. You never know. In the tech sector, there's 300,000 jobs laid off, 300,000 layoffs last year.
That's right.
We talked about it. Spotify, after they released their Wrap last year, they laid off 17,000 people right before Christmas.
That's right.
You did a great job on Wrapped. Bye. See ya. And so having that, like you said, being able to ebb and flow with the seasons, that's no longer a panic button ultra crisis moment.
Right.
There can be a give and take. And maybe even anecdotally, we can share a little bit about our experience in how we probably had some more traditional and conventional thinking when we first got married.
Absolutely.
But we were open and receptive to this ebb and flow and how it played out. So yeah, talk about that a little bit, because when we first got married, you thought we were going to have a kid right out of the gate.
I thought we were going to have a kid when I graduated from my bachelor's, and I only got a bachelor's just in case, like the classic, like get a bachelor's just in case my husband dies or divorces me or something like that. Like, there was no, like, I didn't plan to use my bachelor's. And when we graduated, I personally felt not ready to have kids, but then also I panicked because, like, we talked in episode 5 or 6 or something. I think it was episode 5 part 1 or 2. We talked about how right after we graduated, you went to like a depressive episode for a couple months probably. Yeah. And so I panicked because I thought, oh, I'm supposed to be getting pregnant and getting ready to have kids, but we don't have money.
Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed to have children when we have no money? And that kind of triggered like childhood stuff, being from a single mom household who made like no more than $14K a year, probably. I mean, I've totaled it at times, and in the past it was like $10K.
With 10 children.
With 10 children, and on welfare and church welfare and just all the things. And so I panicked and I was like, I can't have kids and not have money. And that's not going to work for me. So I wanted to figure out what I could do to make money with the bachelor's that I had. And really the only thing that would work was getting a master's, which I've explained before. And so we went and got a master's, but while I was in my master's, I didn't make any money because I couldn't work. and my master's was super expensive. And so you ended up working for the university.
Well, yeah, I'm just going to interject real quick from the man's perspective now at that linchpin when you're like, oh, I'm going to go get a master's degree. So we were living in California at the time, and I was in a dark depression, and I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I didn't know how to execute it. And I had a degree in entrepreneurship in startups, right? And to be a good entrepreneur, you need a network and you need access to resources. And actually, to be good in any career, you kind of need those two things. Anyway, I especially in California, had neither. And so I knew I had certain strengths and skills. So I applied to this position to be an educator presenter person. Mm-hmm. And I got that job, and I was really excited because I thought it could really develop and grow and evolve into something that I really ultimately would feel very successful at. And when you express your desire to get a master's degree and further your career, I had to juggle that thought in my mind. I had to choose between those two options. And I thought, you know what? We have friends in Arizona that we could do startup stuff. I think there is a path to building my career simultaneously with yours, especially because I was so undecided and you had such conviction. And the reason why I want to mention that in this story is because it's like you said, there's no binaries. You can do both.
Yeah.
And that is what we experienced.
Yeah.
So you started your master's degree, but we still had no money. Mm-hmm. And so I went to work to provide for the household, so to speak.
And not doing startups because
it didn't guarantee income.
Yeah.
So I put my startup stuff on the side, and we focused on building your career, which ironically led to the development of my career, because I got a job in higher education to provide for you and us while you were furthering your career. And that's a huge reason why I'm a professor now at the largest university in the state.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was actually a huge part of that.
So all I want to highlight is that I think a lot of people would be like, oh, Charles made a sacrifice. Oh, Charles put himself, below Clarissa to prioritize her career. That wasn't the case at all.
Yeah, no.
We built our careers simultaneously together.
Yeah.
Incidentally. Like, it wasn't planned like that, but it's how it happened.
Yeah, because every 1 to 2 years, we ended up shifting on like who was making the bulk of the bread, And so it was like, we just kind of did that dance for a while. And now we're actually pretty equally matched at this point.
Right.
But this is the first time since ever.
We're going on 9 years together.
That we're actually equally matched in our income.
As of August last year.
Yeah.
Was the first time that our take home was comparable.
Yeah. Yeah. Within the same ballpark. And
yeah.
And so, it just goes to show that out of survivability, but also flexibility, we did have to find the ability to both clean, both take care of the pets, both buy the groceries, both make food. We couldn't do it if it was only me doing some of those more traditional roles.
No way.
We probably would have gotten a divorce because I would have been so unhappy with having to take on all that. Or I would have been like, this is way too much. I can't do my career and I just have to focus on this stuff.
Yeah.
Which also would have made me personally unhappy. So
absolutely.
It's just wild. I think flexibility is the best way to approach it. I respect if people want traditional or egalitarian, but no matter what, you have to be flexible. Because if your goal is, I know we knocked on traditional, but if your goal is egalitarian and you both want to work and you both want to provide and take care of everything else, then what happens when somebody gets laid off or when somebody can't find their job or stuff like that? Then you end up in a single income anyway. And so then you have to be flexible with moments like that.
Yeah, because all these resentments flare up. I'm doing so much, you're not holding up your end of the deal. And I love that word flexibility. That is such an underrated virtue.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the core of how to, the intro of this episode was navigating career development, and I feel like flexibility is the how-to.
Yeah. Understanding that you can both build your careers at the same time, reevaluating and reconsidering what bowl of responsibilities and how to equitably distribute those, even in traditional roles, like that can still be done in traditional households.
Not putting things on pause. Like we said, like if you do want to do kids or do all that, like stay engaged in whatever career community that you care about.
Yeah. And also, last thing that we haven't covered that I really want to emphasize is don't sell yourself short, especially women, but anybody, man or woman. You know, one mentor who inspired both of us to dream big and shoot for the stars, which has led to a lot of the success that we have because it built up that self-efficacy in us, is he would say, when you look out and you see all the great accomplishments and achievements of humankind, we always ask, like, who am I to have the audacity to say that I could do that same thing? And he basically reframed it and he said, why not you? Everything that has been built on this planet was built by humans. You're a human. We're all made of the same stuff. And kind of like how I said earlier, all you need to build the life that you want is a network and access to resources. And you can build those things while having children, while having a career. Those are small, actionable things. So ask yourself, why not you? What is the big, awesome thing that you could be building towards? And I just encourage everyone to reconsider the limitations that we may have put on ourselves because I have kids, because I don't have a degree, because whatever reason.
Absolutely.
Which I think actually lends really well to the final thing, which was the connection question and date idea. So Clarissa, do you want to share that?
I'll share the connection question. You should share the date idea.
Oh, okay.
The connection question is, if your career did not have any limitations, i.e. time, kids, money, resources, etc., what would you want to do? Where would you want to take it? What would you be doing?
Yeah, I love that question. Without limitations, what would your dream career be? So good. And the date idea is to go to an auto dealership and go test drive your dream car. Don't listen. If it's a minivan, think bigger. Okay? You really want to check out the Tesla Cybertruck? Well, good luck. I don't think you can test drive that one. But if you could, go to Tesla and test drive it. If you love Audis, Audi R8, that's my dream car. Woo! Just take your partner and go test drive your dream car. And ask that question along the way. You know what? Like, there weren't any restrictions or limitations. What kind of life would we have? I just think that's so valuable.
Absolutely.
So good. All right. Well, this is Charles.
And Clarissa signing off.
Just remember, for things to get better,
for me and you,
it takes two.
Nice. I always have to lunge.
Yeah.